Alrighty, everyone. Good evening. I'm meteorologist Timmy Albertson here with you guys. Welcome to the first weather chat. Now, for those of you who might be watching tonight on Facebook, keep in mind we're probably going to be doing these videos out of YouTube beginning tomorrow. But for tonight, we're just doing it on Facebook Live here. So we'll give everyone a few moments to maybe kind of join us in here. I know on this particular page, it's on the Wisconsin, Minnesota channels page. I think we're going to have some folks from Indiana also joining in on us. So we'll give them a few moments here as they kind of try to jump in here and join us here on this weather chat. So for those of you who are already with us and kind of waiting around, let me go ahead and explain to you here what we intend to do with this Facebook Live and eventually kind of this weather chat thing here is basically we're going to talk about kind of the main weather events that are going on right now across the country. Tonight's main focus is probably going to be the tropical weather, as some of you guys have probably already heard that the tropics are starting to get a little bit active in the Atlantic. It's been a bit active in the East Pacific, but now we're starting to see things kind of firing up in the Atlantic Ocean. Now, for those of you who might also be watching, you're probably noticing that the screen might be a little bit jumpy. Again, having some slight internet issues tonight. Hopefully we'll have that resolved for the day tomorrow. But in the meantime, well, let's go ahead here and kind of start off a little bit of a look at the radar. Now, there's no particular area that we're going to be focusing solely on tonight. The purpose of this is just kind of take a look around and talk about some weather. So let's go ahead here before we dive into some of the tropical stuff. And again, waiting for our folks over in the Indiana page probably to join in on us here. And again, if you guys have any questions, you can always certainly feel free to join in here. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the old radar imagery and go figure, guys. The first time we do this show, well, there's not really much in the way of severe weather going on in our area. I know that earlier on over the weekend we had some of that going on, and right now, well, not necessarily so much the case here. Kind of more or less a little bit of a quiet evening across the upper Midwest, and part of the reason for that is, well, we have this kind of broad upper level high that is just kind of sitting over the central part of the U.S., and that's really keeping things pretty quiet. As a matter of fact, if we kind of zoom out here on the radar, it's a little hard to see here for those of you who might not necessarily be familiar with upper level charts and everything, but you can see the radar is very, very, very quiet across the central part of the U.S., all the way over towards the East Coast. That's that upper level high there that is just really keeping things, well, pretty quiet right now. Eventually, that upper level high will likely kind of move away and begin to erode. But in the meantime, it's just resulting in some very, very hot weather down across the central part of the U.S. Certainly some very hot August weather there for you. And again, as mentioned, we're getting some more people to kind of join in here. So what we'll go ahead and do here while we're looking at this rather quiet radar imagery is we'll just kind of introduce myself really quickly, and then we'll kind of take a little bit of a look over towards the tropics kind of briefly here. But I'm meteorologist Timmy Albertson. I'm a degreed meteorologist, work in broadcast, and again, this is America's weather streaming channel, and we're kind of in the process of launching everything right now. For tonight, this particular show is going to be on this Facebook Live, but tomorrow we intend to do it off of YouTube. So we'll send the links and everything for that here. But what we're going to talk about is just kind of the weather going on right now. And if any of you guys have any questions, you can certainly feel free to join in or feel free to ask those questions here on the comments section, at least on the Wisconsin page here. And I'll be more than happy to answer any of those questions for you guys as they do come along. But in the meantime, we are taking a look at the radar imagery. Folks, it is very quiet. As I mentioned, kind of go figure. Last week we had some active severe weather going on across the country. This week, not so much, courtesy of this upper level high that is just kind of sitting right over the central part of the U.S. We'll take a little bit of a look over in the desert Southwest, where there are actually at least a few little strong storms down around the Phoenix and Tucson area here. But again, nothing necessarily too unusual. Maybe a little bit in the way of some hail there. Let's see exactly what this storm is warned for just outside the Phoenix area. And yes, it's going to be for some small hail and some 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts here. Of course, mind you, this is a desert, so there's probably going to be some blowing dust kind of with that. So let's take a little bit of a look here over at the Phoenix radar, or at least the closest radar site over there, and we'll kind of get a little bit of an idea of what we're looking at with this storm. Now, on the colors that you do see here, well, that little yellow indicates a severe thunderstorm warning, as I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with seeing on TV and everything. And again, it's not a very big storm, but given the atmosphere out here, well, it probably is producing at least a little bit in the way of some gusty winds. Again, mainly to the north and to the east of the Phoenix metro. It's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. The storm is probably only going to affect a handful of people there, but certainly probably maybe a little bit of a decent light show for those around the Mesa area, all the way over towards the far eastern side there of the Phoenix metro. And again, you can see the latest radar scan showing it there a little bit. Now, this storm, as mentioned, is currently warned for some gusty winds with it, but it's right at the edge of what we would consider to be kind of severe winds there, and that is 58 miles an hour or higher. This storm is expected to have about locally 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts with it. So kind of the standard baseline severe thunderstorm warning. If we were to go ahead here and kind of flip over a little bit towards kind of take a look at some of the what was I going to say? The velocities with this here. We'll kind of take a little bit of a look, see if we can see some wind signatures with this storm. Again, kind of more or less just a little bit of the standard severe thunderstorm warning in an area that doesn't tend to see much in the way of severe thunderstorm warnings. After all, it's the middle of a desert. One of these days, folks, I'll take you on my Phoenix, Arizona rants, but for today, I'll kind of spare you that. But overall, again, we take a look here on your right, you see this red and green looking Christmas card. That's actually what we call the velocity radar imagery in meteorology, and the velocity we really particularly use for looking for strong winds in a storm or also rotation. What you're seeing here is red and green. Green are winds going towards the radar, red are winds going away from the radar. The radar being all the way down here, that little green dot, if you're able to see it there on your screen. So in this particular case, we're not really looking for rotation. We're trying to maybe see a little bit if there's some heavy winds within this storm. And again, it's just kind of right on the notch. We're starting to see some of these bright red colors here. Again, that's probably what tripped the National Weather Service up, at least down in Phoenix, to issue the severe thunderstorm warning on that. Again, locally gusty winds, most places probably aren't going to be seeing 60-mile-an-hour winds, maybe 30 to 40 miles an hour winds, but maybe enough to kick up some dust and make travel a little tricky for a few moments and around some of those rural highways there. So again, that's kind of the main storm right now in the entire U.S. Who would have thought that it would be in Phoenix, Arizona, in the middle of the desert out there? There's a decent storm in the southern part of Arizona. This little guy right around here, Sierra Vista, you see it has actually kind of cooled the temperatures down there quite a bit. It's about 82 over in Tucson, but about 77 degrees down there. Kind of cool, actually. Again, another one of these warned for some wind. Radar signature maybe a little bit better with this particular storm as it kind of drifts its way to the north and to the east. Looks like we may actually have a we have a camera here available, or at least some observation. About 89 degrees there. It's a cool one actually over in Tucson this afternoon. So again, that's kind of the main big storms right now, kind of ongoing in the U.S. These little guys are just going to kind of bubble up and be around probably for another few hours. They're riding along the western edge of that upper level high that is really keeping most of the U.S. pretty quiet right now. So a little bit of an atmosphere here for certainly some gusty winds. Taking a look here, it is warned for 1-inch size hail and 60-mile-per-hour winds. So as we'll go on here with these chats, you'll begin to learn kind of what are the baselines for these severe thunderstorm warnings. And again, what you would look for in a severe thunderstorm is either the possibility for a decent tornado, in which case it'd probably have a tornado warning, or you would look more or less for some winds. And in this case, a severe thunderstorm is winds 58 miles an hour or higher, or you would want hail at least 1 inch or greater within the storm to be at least indicated on the radar imagery. This severe thunderstorm is barely a severe thunderstorm, at least according to the warning, about 1-inch size hail with 60-mile-per-hour winds. Again, that is not going to be the whole storm here, but kind of zooming in a little bit here, as opposed to the one that we were looking at over in the Phoenix area, This one is actually probably a little bit better structured here. We can see a little bit probably of some outflow winds here. These green colors getting a little bit bright there, probably going to be indicating at least maybe some winds getting close to about 40, 50 miles an hour or so, and certainly some heavy downpours in there. Where we're starting to see these little darker reds here too. We're actually going to flip over to a different type of radar imagery. We're taking a look at the velocity. Another thing that we like to use in meteorology when we're looking for hail is something called vertically integrated liquid, kind of a big name there. We call it VIL for short. And basically, this is just kind of measuring the amount of moisture in the single column of air. Kind of hard to visualize, I know, but basically where we see higher values is a good indication sometimes that there is some hail. And it looks like the radar might be picking up at least on a little bit. And we see just north there of what is that? Whetstone area there, just outside of the Tucson area. So that's likely going to be where that hail is within that storm. See if we can't get that tag moved off there. Again, just to the north there of the Whetstone area there, kind of traveling to the north and to the east. And this, I will say, that what you're looking at here with this VIL imagery is it is running a few minutes behind the actual radar imagery there towards your left. So left radar image is about 9:11 p.m., at least it's Eastern time. The image on the right is about 9:06 p.m. So, of course, this being in, I believe, actually Pacific time zone, is obviously it's about 6 o'clock there. So, we're working with Eastern time right now, folks, but for those of you watching, you can kind of fill in the gaps of where you are. But anyways, again, just kind of a little bit of hail there with that storm. We start seeing kind of these more darker red colors. Even it might be a little hard for you guys to see on your screen, but take a look at that. A little bit of some purples kind of showing up in there. Again, the radar is detecting a little bit more in the way of some moisture. Again, that's right around where we're seeing kind of that higher VIL value there a little bit with some of that hail. So again, kind of the main event going on right now, storm-wise, across the United States. And it is, ironically, as mentioned, all the way down in Arizona. Who would have thought that that would be the first place that we'd be taking a look at storms here on this little show here? Let's take a look at this little guy over here. I noticed this a little bit ago. And again, anyone, feel free to chime in if you want to take a look at the radar where you happen to be watching from. But at the moment here, we're taking a look at this little dude literally out in the middle of nowhere, Arizona. But I will say, looking at it on the radar imagery here, again, it might be looking a little far away, but that does show at least some decent, how can I put this here? It shows at least a decent looking radar signature there that there's probably going to be a little bit of hail associated with that. Now, again, look at that. We're out in the middle of nowhere, Arizona here. I mean, really, when you talk about Arizona, there's really only two population centers, Phoenix and Tucson, with a couple people down in Yuma and over towards Lake Havasu out near the California border, and obviously Flagstaff. Can't forget them up there. They get a little bit of snow in the year. But yeah, we're looking down around the Tucson area, and check out, like I said, we were taking a look at the VILs. I explained that a little bit ago, what exactly that was. And again, seeing some decent signatures there. Might be a little bit in the way of some hail with that storm. Now, it'll be interesting to see if they do warn it. Again, maybe not, because since it's in the middle of nowhere, we'll just kind of have to wait and see. So that is a look there at some storms. We'll check back on these little guys a little later. Certainly bringing some heavy rains down around this area. And again, it's a desert, so that water doesn't always necessarily have many places to go. Tends to happen when you have arid climates. With that in mind here, let me go ahead here and see if I can't just at least flip on the screen so maybe you guys can see me here briefly, or there we go. Let's go ahead and use that one here. Still learning the system here, folks, so a little bit different here. You'll have to bear with me at least for tonight. Hopefully things will be a little bit smoother for the day tomorrow. All right, let's go ahead and take a look here randomly. Who wants to take a look at Chicago? Let's see if there's anything going. And the answer is going to be no. I can tell you right now there's nothing really going on in Chicago weather-wise. It's pretty quiet. Again, they're underneath that upper level ridge. But I'll tell you what, temperatures there right now pretty mild. And again, in Central Time, it's about 8:15 down there. Sun's kind of getting a little bit lower, but they're still pushing well into the 70s right now, and it's likely going to be probably only getting hotter as we go forward in the work week here. Flipping over towards Des Moines, again, nothing really much going on there, but let's take a look at some of these temperatures here. What is it right now over in Des Moines? I've been there before a couple of times. They're sitting about 86 degrees right now at about 8:20 in the evening. So certainly some warm temperatures there. And I'll tell you what, here's something pretty interesting too. Might be hard for you guys to see here, but look at those dew points. 77 dew point out in Des Moines. That is very, very humid air. 81 over in Newton. That is, I almost wonder if that might be a false measurement there, seeing as how the temperature there is also at 81. But again, maybe that might be a false, but overall, you get the idea, folks. It's pretty muggy. All right. I'm sure a lot of you guys probably want to take a look at the tropics here, tired of looking at mostly clear skies here. So we'll go ahead here and I will flip. Oh, look at that matrix there. Ain't that pretty cool? All right, tropics are heating up, folks. For those of you who may or may not be paying attention to that, of course, this time of the year, we do tend to see the tropics heating up quite a bit, especially once we get towards late August, going into September in the Atlantic Ocean. It's been pretty quiet so far this hurricane season, and then all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, we've been tracking them for a few days, but now we got a couple of systems that are out there, and but ironically, go figure, none of them are really gonna, at least right now, looking to be strong, with the exception of Franklin here that you see on your screen. Franklin might try to become a hurricane later on in its life here, but there's one problem with Franklin, and that is that it's going to be running into land pretty early on in its life. And of course, obviously, it being in the Greater Antilles, I believe, is what we call that area up there, Caribbean, obviously. Well, that's if you're a hurricane, you don't necessarily want to run into land, but especially when you're first developing. But if we take a look at it here on the satellite imagery down to your bottom left there, hey, take a look at this. All right, so on the satellite imagery, you might think this is a radar. No. This is just an infrared satellite imagery from probably about an hour or two ago. We'd maybe take a look at the updated satellite imagery in a little bit, courtesy of Tropical Tidbits. This is an infrared satellite imagery. That red color that you see there are cold cloud tops. The green color is not as cold cloud tops. This kind of gives us an idea how high these clouds are, more or less kind of the structure a little bit of the storm in terms of satellite imagery, rather than a visible satellite where, everything you would see would pretty much be white until the sun went down, in which case you would just get a big black screen, kind of useless at nighttime, but certainly useful during the daytime. But this is infrared satellite imagery. This is not rain. I know a lot of times when you watch the news, they'll show that and they'll say, look at this hurricane, it's 500 miles wide. Well, cloud cover wise, yes, but the whole thing is not, trust me, the whole thing is not a massive hurricane here. On your right, you see the Hurricane Center, National Hurricane Center's track, what they expect with this tropical system here. So there's a couple things to discuss about it. And again, maybe in a little bit, we'll see if we can get some buoy reports out from around that area. So right now, at least it's 5 o'clock, 50-mile-an-hour winds. And most of you watching, you get that in a thunderstorm. So not necessarily the strongest wind system here. Also not the best organized. And might be, from a non-meteorology standpoint, you might be saying, well, Timmy, what do you mean it's not organized? Well, listen, hurricanes tend to be very organized in their structure. I mean, they have the classic-looking things with their eyes, and you have the nice annular shape with them, courtesy of the Coriolis partially. But this one does not look like that. It kind of looks like someone, had some soup and just kind of spun the bowl, and boom, there you go. Well, again, it's still pretty young in its age here, and again, it's still trying to get organized. It's also battling a little bit with an upper-level trough that is not too far away. But here's the deal. Remember that upper-level ridge we were talking about? See, this is where weather gets really fun, and you'll learn as we go through these chats again and again and again and again. You're going to learn, have an appreciation for just how fun the weather can be. So that upper-level ridge that is baking half of the central U.S., and will be over the next couple of days, is actually responsible for the direction of a couple of storms that we're going to be taking a look at. More so, Tropical Depression 9, which we'll come back to in a moment. So this little guy, kind of struggling a little bit. It's interacting with an upper-level trough here and there. And it's kind of just drifting along right now to the west-southwest at about 5 miles an hour. Yeah, most boats can outrun that. But eventually, it'll probably try to get a little bit better organized, especially as we go forward here in the forecast. The problem is that the island of Hispaniola is right there in its way. That includes Haiti and the Dominican Republic, the island of Hispaniola. You can kind of see it there on your screen a little bit. Again, Not necessarily a big landmass, but for a developing tropical system, well, it certainly is. Going to run into that. It's probably going to disrupt it a little bit. Again, hurricanes like open water. They do not like land. That's why they always weaken when they hit land, among some other factors. But so it'll probably weaken off a little bit. And when it does reach Hispaniola, it appears the National Hurricane Center is expecting that it'll probably have maybe winds around 65 miles an hour or so. But again, that's not going to be the whole system. As we go through hurricane season, we'll have better examples of what I'm talking about here. But when we talk about winds of a tropical system, we're not talking about the whole thing. If you are 100 miles away from the center of that storm, you're not necessarily going to be seeing 50-mile-an-hour winds if that's what the peak winds are. That tends to be centered right around the center, especially when we're dealing with hurricanes and something called the eye wall. Again, we're not at that point right now. But again, this whole thing is not 50-mile-an-hour winds. If the resolution is good enough on your screen at home, you should be able to see a little yellow dot in the center of that forecast map there, right where that little X is. That is the tropical storm force wind field. Not very big, and that's estimated, at least with satellite imagery. Hurricane hunters, I do believe, actually are flying through this. I do believe that it might be going through it again right now, actually, here. This is the 5 o'clock update. I don't think there's an intermediate update, but we'll double check here after we take a look at this forecast. But you get the idea nonetheless. So again, that little guy running right into land, not long after, appears about Wednesday afternoon here. So as we take a look at it on Wednesday evening, it'll probably be going over Hispaniola, if not already exiting it. With about winds of 65 miles an hour, it'll weaken off a little bit, and then it's going to re-enter the open waters. And that's when it could get a little bit more interesting. There's going to be another upper level ridge that's expected to develop on the eastern side of this system, and that's going to help push it to the north. Now, obviously, folks, you're still looking way, way out ahead here, but getting kind of close to the island of Bermuda. Where is Bermuda, you ask? Well, if you look really carefully at the top there of that Hurricane Center map, you can see a little black text there. If you can't read it, it says Bermuda. Bermuda's tiny little island, ironically, still under the domain of the United Kingdom. So it's technically a British overseas territory, the more you know. Unlike some of the other Caribbean countries that have their independence, but of course, Bermuda's not in the Caribbean. But you get what I'm saying. British. All right. British island. No, but so it'll be tracking its way up towards the north, eventually maybe getting close to that. Eventually, it is expected to reach hurricane intensity maybe by the time we get towards, what is today, the 21st? So it is maybe by the time we get to Saturday, perhaps maybe even a little bit sooner there, maybe on Friday night, could become a hurricane, maybe if winds about 80 miles an hour. And again, that is the preliminary forecast. Again, that's from the Hurricane Center. So again, developing system out in the Caribbean. It's got a couple of things working against it right now. But again, once we get that upper level winds to kind of quiet down a little bit, if you're a hurricane, here's what's funny about a hurricane. Hurricanes, as strong as they are, folks, are incredibly sensitive. And when I say sensitive, they are incredibly sensitive to the atmosphere around them. They want nothing to be around them as they exist. They want it to be quiet. They don't like wind shear, which is a downside if you are if you're pretty much anywhere in the mid latitudes. You don't want cold ocean temperatures. It's got to be, the general rule of thumb is about 80 degrees or higher is when we tend to start, talking about favorable water temperatures for a hurricane. And there's some other factors. You don't want a high pressure in the way. I mean, keep in mind, folks, it might be a little hard for you to see. Actually, this particular one doesn't have it up there, and I forgot to grab what the pressure right now of Franklin is. But here's the fun thing. Hurricanes are extreme areas of low pressure. I mean, when you start talking about those big hurricanes, we're talking pressure values that are, around 900 millibars with some of the strongest ones. That probably doesn't mean much to you, but the average atmospheric pressure is about 10-13 millibars. Again, a lot of you guys are probably used to hearing inches. That'd be about 29.92 inches for the pressure there. But again, so when we're talking about hurricanes, we're talking about really low areas of pressure. Low pressures cannot move a high pressure. High pressures are the dominant ones. So there's a big high pressure in the way. If you're a hurricane, that's not a big deal. So we'll keep an eye over the next couple of days here on Tropical Storm Franklin. It'll maybe eventually become a hurricane. It'll get kind of close to that wind speed a little bit. And again, hurricanes are rated solely on wind speed. Kind of a weird thing when you think about it, given how there's different things within a hurricane that can happen or that can vary a little bit, but they're rated solely on the wind speeds. Kind of fun fact for you there. Unlike tornadoes, which are rated on damage, using damage to estimate the wind speeds. Trippy, I know. Don't ask me, I didn't create it. But you get the idea. So we'll keep an eye on that. All right, let's go ahead and we're going to talk about another tropical system here. And again, for those of you who might be watching on the Indiana page, if you are leaving questions or comments, I can't probably see them at least at the moment. So if you head over to the Wisconsin, Minnesota page where this thing is originating from, feel free to ask those questions. And we'll get to them here right now. Alex says, woohoo, Chicago from earlier. I saw that. I forgot to respond to that. But yes, Chicago. Fun city. Been there a few times myself. All right, let's see here if we can't go ahead and take a look at Tropical Depression 9. Probably going to become our next named system here in a little bit. To be honest, this is probably about as unexciting right now of a tropical system as you're going to get. Nah, just kidding. But this little guy all the way out here in the Gulf of Mexico. Right now, it's just a tropical depression, doesn't have a name. It might get named later on here. And it is actually moving at a pretty decent speed, which is a little fast, actually, for tropical systems. But again, remember that upper level high we were talking about? Maybe we'll take a look here once we're done talking about this. I'll show you on a map exactly where that upper level high is sitting. Right over the central U.S., hence why most things are pretty quiet right now. But this little dude right down there is kind of being accelerated because that upper level high is to the north, clockwise flow, so it's pushing it off to the west there at about 35 miles an hour, which might not sound fast. When we talk about thunderstorms, we talk about 45, 50, even sometimes 60, 70 mile an hour forward directions with thunderstorms. Tropical systems, not so much. They tend to be a little bit slower moving, at least initially. If they get stuck in and they get wrapped around an area of high pressure, they do speed up a little bit, but sometimes that doesn't necessarily always, how can I put this? Fast speed is not necessarily always a good thing for a hurricane. All right, moving rapidly along. This is tropical depression right now. 35 mile an hour, maximum sustained winds about 35 miles an hour. This thing's moving to the west at about 18 miles an hour, so a little bit on the fast side. And again, it's probably going to maybe pick up a little bit more speed here. It is going to intensify. The Hurricane Center is actually expecting it's probably going to become a named system. And this was as of 5 o'clock. Let's see if there might be an intermediate update for that here in just a second. Actually, you know what? Let me go ahead here and see while we're talking about it. Just double check here. Put these graphics together a little bit ago, and we'll see here just really quickly if there is a update here with it. But regardless, here's the deal with this little guy. Is that it is moving at a pretty decent speed. It is going to try to intensify a little bit. Problem is Texas is right there. And yeah, that's pretty much going to be the problem. Nope, nothing new with it at this time. So that is the problem with this tropical system is that it's got a fast speed, it doesn't have much room to work with, and it's about to run into a big landmass called the American continent. That'll weaken up a tropical system pretty quickly. Tropical storm warnings are in effect actually down around Corpus Christi. It's looking like this system will probably make a landfall as a tropical storm, not a hurricane. It's just mainly going to bring some rain in, and we'll keep an eye on maybe for the possibility for a little severe weather. We'll talk more about that later. That is sometimes a thing with some of these tropical systems is severe weather, believe it or not, as if they're not already severe. But we're talking about other things. But moving rapidly along, there it is on the satellite imagery from about a couple hours ago, again, courtesy of Tropical Tidbits. That is the infrared satellite imagery. Again, a little disorganized here. It'll try to get a little better organized, but again, it does not have much time to go through. It's rounding the base of that upper level ridge, and that is going to slam it right into the Gulf Coast there of Texas. And boy, I can't remember now what that town, there's a town just south of the border in Mexico. I can't even remember that province. Well, gosh darn it. But you get the idea, mainly just bringing some rain there. So actually, pretty interestingly, let's go ahead and flip back over towards our radar friend here. And if we kind of scroll down here a little bit, let's take a look over at Corpus Christi here. Corpus Christi, city of Texas, way down south there. All right, we'll flip on the radar imagery for it. Again, we can already kind of start to see there is some rain associated with this guy. And as soon as that radar imagery loads, there it is, all the way out there in the open ocean. Rain, yay. Now, again, this is not a strong system. The wind field probably does not extend very far out, probably will not extend very far out. Those yellow boxes that you see there on the radar imagery, those yellow boxes, as I briefly froze up there, but those yellow boxes are actually tropical storm warnings in this case here. So again, we'll kind of zoom in a little bit, take a look at that. And those little purple boxes up there to the north are tropical storm watches. So again, tropical storm warnings are in effect for part of the southern Texas coast. But again, that's just, you know, they're not expecting probably much more than tropical storm conditions given the system, and that's not going to be the strongest. Certainly it will bring some rain showers. Looks like they're already starting to see some showers out around that area. But overall, you get the idea. Hey, let's take a look, see if we can't get a buoy report from somewhere out here. Unfortunately, they seem to be maybe a little bit old. When was this from? Oh, this is from about, an hour or so ago. I just realized you all cannot see what I am showing you because I did not flip the screen. See, new system, folks, trying to get it down. All right, let's go ahead. Yep, there's the matrix again. All right, let's go ahead here and take a look now. Wow, all right. So now you should be able to see it. Now I got to repeat everything I just said. Oh, well, that's the joys of it. Tropical storm warnings, Corpus Christi, up to part of the Gulf Coast there, essentially southern Texas, you can see. Again, nothing too unusual. This is going to probably barely be kind of a tropical storm, maybe a mid-sized tropical storm when it does make landfall, maybe about 45, 50 mile an hour winds at most. Most people are not going to be seeing that wind at all, but, you know, they will have to, of course, naturally have the tropical storm warnings up for it there, Corpus Christi, and then again, once you go a little further north, it's a tropical storm watch. All right, so good. You're all able to see that. Just wanted to make sure. All right, so let's see if we can't find a buoy or something. Let's see here. It's any wind speeds here. No, wind speed 11 miles an hour. Ooh, folks, put that down the hatches on that one. 11 miles an hour is the wind speed, kind of near where the center of that is. 80-degree temperature there, though. Let's see if we can't find one a little bit more down to the south. This is buoy 42002, our friend here. And let's see here. It might actually have a photo. Oh, that's right. It might be nighttime down there. Can we see anything with that? There we go. Hey, hey. Look at that, folks. Had a little bit of had a brief picture there. It looks pretty quiet there, to be quite honest. And again, aside from some rain showers, that's probably going to be about it. Wind speed right there, about 22 miles an hour, gusting to about 26 miles an hour. Nothing too unusual. So overall, just kind of the basics with that system. I do understand, folks, that the internet might be a little bit jumpy right now. And again, we are going to work on getting that fixed, hopefully in time for tomorrow. But for now, let's just muddle on through it, as the British would say. Muddle on. Always kind of like that term. All right, let's go ahead here really quickly. And while we're thinking about it, let's see if we can't. The nearest buoy to Franklin right now appears to be not very close to Franklin. And that is going to give it about, about 22 mile an hour wind. So again, nothing too unusual there. So that is kind of what we are looking at least a little bit with that. Whoops. I have so many tabs open. My record, I think, is having 30 tabs open once. That is that. So with that in mind here, let's look at what's going on. So kind of a test run for today. Again, as we go forward, we will probably have more interesting things to talk about. Of course, with that upper level high sitting right over the area. Oh, that's what we were going to kind of take a look at here. Let's see if we can't get it while we're there. Hey, see if we can't maybe take a quick look here at that. Yeah, you're all able to see that. All right, let's go ahead here and see if we can't maybe take a look here at. Heck, are you guys still not able to see the screen yet? Kind of weird how that is working out. I'll give it just a second here, but if we're able to get the screen to change here, or it could just be another fun little technical glitch that we might be having. We'll see if we can take a look here at that upper level ridge that I've been talking about here all evening. Go ahead here and see if we can't filter this out. And there you go. There it is. If you're able to see, let's see one more time, folks, if I can get this screen to switch, because otherwise it would be kind of an inconvenience if you can't see what I'm trying to point at to you here. But again, that's the fun of doing things live sometimes. All right, we'll try it one more time here. Hopefully you guys are able to see it. If not, well, then we'll just have to take a look at it again for the day tomorrow. But, you know, hey, why not? Maybe we could stay on this screen a little bit here. Looks like you all are just really, you guys still on Franklin. So there we go with that. Or there's Tropical Depression 9. There's Tropical Storm Franklin. Are you guys still able to see it yet or not? Let's see. That's all right. Fortunately, the nice thing about it being the first episode or the first time we do this show is that there's not many people watching, so we can afford to kind of have at least maybe a little bit of these what do you call it? Technical glitches. All right. Let's go ahead and get back here to everything. It looks like you guys are now maybe able to see everything a little bit better. So there is that upper level high that is just kind of sitting. And I just realized I forgot to switch the screen again. Boy, this is fun, ain't it? All right. Let's go ahead here. There's that upper level high that is sitting right over the U.S. Yeah, that's a pretty big one. And that upper level high is really what's keeping things pretty quiet for the most part. Now, for those of you up around Minnesota and Wisconsin, we have this little ridge here, but there is actually the possibility we'll probably see some storms trying to develop later on tonight out around Saskatchewan and North Dakota that then might try to track down to the south and to the east as we go through the overnight tonight, maybe some elevated thunderstorms that might try to produce a little bit in the way of some hail as we go into very late tonight or early tomorrow morning. That could be something pretty interesting. So again, this upper level high right now is really kind of what is keeping things pretty quiet for the most part. And that is, again, really kind of the dominating feature that you see right now on the weather map. And again, that's why there's not really much to talk about. However, it is still affecting the weather in all places that we've looked at. Those storms down in Arizona, again, riding along, there's a little bit of a trough, hard to see, out in California. See that little dip there in those lines? And again, you can see how those storms are just kind of funneled more or less right through between that ridge and that upper level high. Again, folks, as time goes on, we'll talk more about that and we'll kind of take more of a look at that. But overall, there you go. And then, of course, we got, it slammed up a little bit, this low pressure up towards the north over Quebec. And again, that's kind of helping to funnel some of those upper level winds down across the Canadian prairies and back up into the upper Midwest. And again, we might see some storms trying to develop later on tonight and early tomorrow morning across northern Minnesota, which is where I am. So maybe I'll have an interesting light show or something when I wake up in the morning. So overall, you get the idea. So with that in mind, while it might be quiet where you're watching, and I'm actually sure that probably for a lot of you guys, it's probably pretty darn quiet, and it's also going to be pretty darn hot. And again, that's courtesy of that upper level ridge. We're going to be seeing those temperatures baking a little bit. Hey, while we're at it, so I think we got like what, 2 people watching, maybe 1 person watching. Hey, who knows? But this would be a normal situation where, we would talk about, we would answer some questions. But, as time goes on, we'll get more to that. Really curious while we're on the topic, and then we'll probably go ahead and wrap this up. Again, we just kind of wanted to do this the first time, and obviously we'll, do more, what would you call it? We'll do more things. We'll do more things, Tony. We'll do more things. We'll do more things here as we go. Oh, wow, look at all those heat warnings. That is a lot of heat warnings. Might be hard for you to see it. This is just straight off the National Weather Service webpage there. Look at all those heat warnings. I told you, it is going to be really heating up here across the central part of the U.S., courtesy of that. So let's go ahead and let's pick Kansas City. I've been there before a couple of times. Let's go ahead and see what the airport is going to be seeing. And again, we saw the humidity we saw the humidity that was with some of those storms there. So again, this is just a quick look. As a side note, we just want to take a look at some 97 degrees for a high tomorrow, and up to, oh wow, look at that, lower 100s. Ugh, middle part of the work week. So that's certainly going to be a pretty decent heat wave there across the central part of the U.S. as we go through the next couple of days. So for those of you watching in the central part of the U.S., it's going to get hot, and I do not envy you that. I am not a hot weather person, and I mean that in the sincerest way. All righty. So that is a look at kind of what's going on right now and across the area. Again, thank you all very much for joining us for the first one. Again, I know most people, when you do probably finally get around to watching this, kind of like a little bit of a time, what do we call it, time caps? I don't know if I'd say time capsule being the right term, but it'd be kind of interesting because probably by the time a lot of you guys watch this video, it'll probably be way in the you'll be in the future watching the past. Kind of interesting how that works. All right, so tomorrow, like I said, we plan on doing this from YouTube, so we'll certainly put up the we'll certainly probably do it from there. We'll put the links up on Facebook and everything, and it'll hopefully go a little bit more smoothly than what we will be, than kind of how things are going right now. But we just kind of wanted to make sure everything was more or less situated. With that in mind, again, if you haven't already, make sure that you do like the America's Weather. Well, make sure you follow us, like us, follow us, do whatever you want. We'll be having more things. Again, we are working on an app that will be available probably getting closer towards around the Labor Day area, as well as doing forecasting and everything like that for everyone. So again, more or less that kind of deal. This just talking about weather, and we're going to keep talking about weather as we go forward through the days and through the week. So again, you're going to want to make sure you join in there. Hey, anytime you guys got questions or comments, you can always feel free to ask them in those comments as we do these videos. But until next time, everyone, thank you all very much for taking the time to join us here. Again, I know, first show tends to be a little bit on the rough side, but hey, we'll get better. Hopefully, we will get better. Don't worry, we'll get better, and things will go a little bit more smoothly. And when that happens, well, we're gonna have a lot more to talk about. Like I said, tropics are heating up. That's gonna be fun. We got very hot weather across the central part of the U.S. A little kind of, I don't want to say late in the year. I mean, we've had some. I've seen some summers where the hottest temperatures happen during September. And actually, hey, fun fact for you. This is free of charge. Fun fact for you. Sometimes it's not unusual to see places that are closer to the coast, like for example, San Francisco. San Francisco's warmest temperatures tend to happen in the month of September. It's because the ocean tends to respond a bit slowly. It takes a lot of energy to both heat and cool water. So it being right by, obviously, a massive body of water, and some other factors that do kind of go into play with that. But San Francisco actually sees their warmest temperatures in the month of September. And then some places down deep south kind of tend to see theirs, or maybe a little bit more so in August. There's some other factors that kind of go in with that too, but that's kind of one of the main reasons. So extreme heat happening, not unusual this time of the year. Essentially, U.S. a little bit more so, but not unheard of. So again, we'll take more of a look at all that and everything else that goes with it. So make sure you join us tomorrow, probably around the same time, same time, slightly different location, but we'll make sure we put those links up on the Facebook page so you can find us tomorrow. And until next time, everyone, well, if you think of any fun weather things, feel free to let us know. But in that time, thank you all very much for taking the time to join us here on this rocky but still first weather chat. And I look forward to seeing you all guys in the next time we do this, which will be tomorrow, as mentioned. So make sure you tune in then, and we'll take more of a look at those tropics and the heat and whatever else might be occurring across the area. Have a good one, everyone.